A Denver police officer and former member of Mayor Michael Hancock's security detail spoke with 7 News this week about sexually suggestive texts she received from the mayor 6 years ago. The mayor publicly apologized to Detective Leslie Branchwise, the city of Denver, and his family, while never denying the allegations. Community groups and activists are calling for his resignation, which Mayor Hancock states he doesn't plan to do at this time. David, this was a wacky story from all different angles, between the letter that inspired the Kowaleski report and the fact that it was 6 years ago, everything else. What's your impression of what we've seen so far this week?
I think his conduct was improper. Given that it was 6 years ago and we don't have any examples of repetition of it since then, I don't think he should resign, and all the more so because an election's coming up anyway. Although for folks who are playing along at home, get out your bingo cards, because one of the reasons we haven't had an investigation is because there's nobody, and only people in the Denver city government can call for an investigation. And as the Denver Sheriff's Fraternal Order Police, which of course represents the bodyguard of the mayor, he explained, you're not going to get a true investigation because of what you have in this form of government is an appointed police chief, an appointed sheriff. And he explains that you need somebody that's independent of this strong mayoral government. The Denver mayoral government is much more like a monarchy than our state form of government is, and with so much power centralized in the mayor. We have an independent city auditor for that reason. We likewise need to have the police chief and the sheriff independently elected and not under the mayor's thumb. And they might then, under those circumstances, be more aggressive in standing up for the rights of their employees.
That is indeed a very surprise benefit for all the folks playing David Kopel CIO bingo out there, getting Denver should elect its sheriff. That was going to be a long shot this week. So well done, David. Well done. Eric, the lightheartedness aside, all different aspects of the story just get murky, get sticky, as my producer and I were talking about this. What was your impression from what we've seen and how it might go forward?
It was a surprise. I mean, there were all these questions in a related field about Michael Hancock when he took office now 6 or 7 years ago, but now people, I think, have put that over in the past tense. Now he's brought a lot of those questions back into the current tense. I do not think a resignation is coming or is in order or is required under the current circumstance. If this is as bad as it gets, I'm not making any excuse for it. And it is bad and ugly, and particularly the text about landing in Las Vegas, let's go party. I'm not expecting him to sit in his hotel room and read policy papers all night, but maybe a little more decorum if you're flying there on tax dollars. The real question, the only question in my mind, Dominic, from a political point of view, is this it? Or is this just the first shoe and there's now going to be shoe number 2, shoe number 3, shoe number 4? If there are further things, as we saw with Lebsock, one person comes forward and then all of a sudden 2 more, and then all of a sudden 2 more after that. If there are more people coming forward, that totally changes the calculus and all bets are off. For now, he survives, and I do have to say, the way he handled it in a very tough circumstance, there's no good way of handling something like this. His tone of contrition was, as I called it in the paper, sort of un-Trump-like. I mean, he was not on the attack, not on the warpath, and not defensive either. So he gets good points for the contrition, but he better hope that there's not more to be contrite about.
Ben, we've seen so far the report, we've seen the interview with Detective Branchwise, and then Detective Branchwise accept the apology. Does this end after a complicated and messy week after we get through this news cycle for Mayor Hancock?
What's going to happen? I think he won't resign. I think that you're looking at a mayor who was already politically vulnerable, who already had a lot of different factions within the city being very unhappy. There's a general tone citywide of frustration with the amount of development and construction, and even my non-political friends are complaining to me about traffic. So I think you're looking at somebody who is already a little bit weaker than maybe he might have been, who's now going to likely face a deeper and more substantial set of opponents in the next election. And I don't know, obviously, if more is going to drip, but I think that the real issue here for the mayor is that this is not an isolated incident. He came into office under a cloud with the Players Club scandal. I think that's going to resurface. I think there have been a lot of rumors floating around, many of which were listed in this anonymous letter that was sent out that prompted a lot of this stuff with Detective Branch Wise. So I think he's got a rocky road in front of him. And I think, frankly, he will run for re-election because he's got nothing else to do. There's not a huge market for him in the private sector. He has almost no upward mobility at this time. And I think given the broader context of what's happening in our society with the Me Too movement and the Time's Up, he's got nowhere to go. So if he wants to stick around, he can maybe be mayor again, but frankly, I doubt it, and I hope not.
You've often made that point pretty
Very
clear.
very
Yeah,
clear.
it's Patty. We've had to talk about sexual harassment issues for a while. You get to lead off in the last topic because of the way we do things. We haven't been able to hear from you on a lot of this stuff. So the floor is yours. What did you think? And Westward was one of the many media outlets that received one of these anonymous letters. So how this all started to where we got to now, your thoughts?
Well, my first thought is if we're concerned about behavior, anyone accused of this is perfectly capable of being president of the United States. I mean, we are seeing the same problems at the top. And those have been, some of those accusations have been documented too. I mean, we saw the tape about what he felt he could grab. So let's remember that. There are, this starts at the top and maybe ends at the top. What he texted to the detective on his security staff was not a crime, but criminally stupid. I mean, really, to find out that your mayor is texting things just that locker room, to quote Trump, locker room dumb, is disheartening. But if no more comes in that area, I think Eric's right. He's not going to resign, and he'll at least survive it through the rest of his term, and then it'll be up to him to decide if he wants to run for president or not. There will be a group that's calling, they're calling for his resignation next week. We're going to hear a lot more about that. But I would love to have us wake up and not hear about who said another stupid thing to a woman or behaved badly with a woman in 2018 and instead start talking about the things that we really care about in this city. Let's talk about growth. Let's talk about developers who are getting away with things, cramming our city more than we want it to be. Let's actually talk about those issues, and everyone else just remember to behave themselves.